Well, China is planning to increase its military budget this year by some 12%, while on the other side of the Pacific, the United States is cutting its defense budget spending. Well, to talk about China's bump in military spending, how it has been received in the U.S., we're now joined by my colleague in D.C., Anand Naidu. Well, Anand, the U.S. seems to be quite concerned by China's military spending.
That's right, thanks, and good morning from Washington. China's 12% increase in military spending, as you've just been reporting, for next year comes at a time when the U.S. president wants to cut military spending. Still, intelligence and military analysts say the United States will not give up much, if any, ground to China or any other country. CCTV's Sean Calebs has our report.
Nearly 3 years ago, May 2nd, 2011, an elite unit of U.S. military troops stormed Osama bin Laden's compound in Pakistan and killed the mastermind behind the devastating 9/11 attacks. The U.S. military is preparing to make deep cuts as it transitions from wartime. The Obama administration wants more of these elite units.
We made choices based on strategic priorities, clear facts, unbiased analysis, and fiscal realities.
No longer saddled with wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that obligate hundreds of thousands of troops, the U.S. wants to cut the number of ground forces from a high of 570,000 in the wake of the terrorist attacks on 9/11 to about 440,000. That would be the lowest number of U.S. troops since the end of World War II.
We're all willing to take risks, but none of us are willing to take a gamble. Because at the end of the day, it's our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, America's sons and daughters who will face tomorrow's challenges.
At a time when China is increasing its military spending by more than 12% and tensions are flaring in the Ukraine, the U.S. is planning to eliminate old mainstays such as the A-10 Warthog jet and the U-2 spy plane. The U.S. does plan to spend more on drones and billions more on the next generation of fighter jet, the F-35. And the F-35 is already wildly over budget.
You have fewer troops, fewer ships, fewer planes. Readiness is not the same standard. Of course there's going to be risk.
Defense expert Michael O'Hanlon calls the cuts cautious and reasonable.
Even with these cuts, the United States will still outspend China 3-1. When you add in our allies, we'll outspend China 5 or 6-1. We have a cumulative weapons inventory of somewhere around $3 trillion of modern high-technology weapons.
The Obama administration has touted its Asian pivot, changing the focus of military attention from Iraq and Afghanistan to the Pacific. China caught the U.S. flat-footed in November when it began enforcing an air defense identification zone over the disputed Diaoyu Islands. U.S. officials fear the zone will escalate tensions and perhaps lead to a military confrontation that could morph into something much worse. Cuts are coming, but there will be widespread pressure to make sure troops have pay raises, adequate housing, and most importantly, the skills and tools needed for the battlefield.
Our most sacred obligation is to make sure they are never sent into a fair fight, which is to say that they must be the best led, the best trained, and the best equipped force in the world.
This is the first step of what will be a long budget process. Military officials say it is still too early to speculate on what the cuts could mean to troops, weapons programs, and facilities. But to put costs in perspective, U.S. military costs make up more than 50% of the discretionary spending of the federal budget.